Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Theravada Buddhism series, Dhamma talk number 38, about Jhana. We have completed the 54 consciousness of sensuous realm. Today we are going to discuss higher consciousness, Jhana Citta. Higher consciousness, Jhana Citta. Before we get into consciousness, let's see what Jhana is. It is translated as ecstasy, in some cases meditation, and also absorption. Different English words for jhana. Neither of these words fully explain what jhana is. So from now on, we will use the word jhana in our talks, like the way we use the word karma. Karma is not translated into English anymore. We just adopted that word karma as one of the words in English. So let's adopt another word, jhana. Jhana derives from the root G, J-H-E, G, which means contemplate and burn. Contemplate is looking closely and burning mental hindrances that oppose concentration. Contemplate means looking closely at the object, and burning is burning the mental hindrances, nivarana, because they are opposed to concentration, samadhi. Therefore, when one has jhana, mental hindrances, 5 mental hindrances, sense desire, ill will, sloth and torpor, restlessness and remorse, and doubt cannot arise. If you have jhana, these 5 hindrances cannot arise. To develop jhana consciousness of form and formless spheres, those are Brahma realms, one must practice jhana. Jhana consciousness is beyond and nobler than the beautiful consciousness. Beautiful consciousness, sobhana citta, they are great, good, beautiful. But jhana consciousness is even higher, more beautiful, more noble than those beautiful consciousness. Like Why? Because occasional acts of generosity and morality, in general, if you want to know detail, the 10 wholesome dharma of humans can produce beautiful consciousness. If you do charity, generosity, morality, those consciousness can arise. But you can do when you want it. It will still arise. However, for jhana consciousness, one must exert great effort in meditation and with commitment. It's not easy, not everyone can do it. That's why jhana consciousness is known as higher consciousness or consciousness of Brahma. Consciousness of Brahma are higher consciousness because they are totally devoid of ill will. So that's a little rundown on what jhana is. Jhana. There are two types of jhanas. The first one is closely examining or meditating on the object. Okay, the first one, examine or meditate very closely on the object of meditation. In Pali, just for information purpose, aramanu pancha jhana. That's what it's called. Aramana is the object of meditation. Anupani means closely examine. Jhana brings about by looking closely at an object. That's what it means, that whole aramanu panchi jhana. Jhana brings about by looking closely at the object. There are 40 kinds of meditation objects for concentration meditation in scripture. Concentration meditation, samatha meditation, one and the same. There are 40 objects. It is written in the scripture. The mind takes the mental image of the physical object to build jhana. One of the 40, you pick one that you like and observe. Observe to the point of not physically, you look at the physical representation, but it's the mental image of that physical object that you are building jhana with. 8 attainments of form and formless realms belong to this category. The second type of jhana, it closely examines the characteristics or marks of the body and mind. Lakhanu Padijjhana in Pali. The second type. Vipassana Bhavana closely examines the three common characteristics of mind and body, which are impermanence, suffering, and no soul or non-self. It's the true characteristics of mind and matter. And Vipassana Jhana examine it very closely. And those are called conditioned phenomena. Anicca, dukkha, anatta. Conditioned phenomena of mind and matter. Every object of the present moment is examined closely for the three marks is Vipassana Jhana. If one is examining closely the three marks or the three characteristics, which are anicca, dukkha, anatta, is Vipassana Jhana. Completion of the Vipassana indicates the arising of the path consciousness. When you have achieved all the Vipassana insight, at that moment, path consciousness arises. But beware, path consciousness is not the result of Vipassana. Let's say, if you graduate from high school, you can go to college, but going to college is not the result of complete passing the high school. Passing the high school gives you an opportunity, give rise to going to college. Some may go, some won't go. If you don't go, you don't have it. So, path consciousness is not the result of Vipassana. It simply is an indicator that there is path consciousness. Fruition, phala, is the result of path consciousness. Path is the cause, phala is the effect. Magga is the cause, phala is the effect. And this fruition closely examine the truth of cessation, nibbana. So still it is observing, looking closely at the truth of the cessation of mind and matter, nibbana. So birth and fruition consciousness belongs to the supramundane consciousness. They are not jhanic consciousness, they are supramundane consciousness, lokotara ceta. But in both consciousness, they look closely, closely at the cessation, the truth of the cessation, nibbana. 5 jhana factors. We just finished talking about jhana. Now is the jhana factors. 5 jhana factors are parts of jhana. There are 5 of them. These are initial application, sustained application, joy, happiness, and one-pointedness. Those 5 are parts of jhana. Okay? Jhaninga, jhana inga, parts of jhana. So they call it jhana factors. These opposes the 5 hindrances. These 5 parts of jhana opposes 5 hindrances. That's jhana factor. The first one is jhana, and this is jhana factor. Parts of jhana. And then one need to know jhana consciousness. They are different. Jhana is one thing. Jhana factor is another thing. Jhana consciousness is another thing. If you want to know what jhana is, one need to know all these little things. Jhana consciousness is the one accompanied by jhana factors. If those 5 factors or some of those 5 factors accompanied a consciousness, and that consciousness is called jhana consciousness. So, to have jhana consciousness, one must practice tranquility meditation, also known as calm meditation, also known as concentration meditation. By taking an object of the subject of 40 concentration meditations. In other words, there are 40 different objects to take if one wants to practice concentration meditation. And you can pick up one that you like, that you want to. We know jhana, jhana factors, and jhana consciousness. So let's go back to jhana. There are 5 kinds of jhana. 5 kinds. Okay. All 5 jhana factors accompany the first jhana. If you say first jhana, it has all the 5 factors. I'll repeat them again. Initial application, sustained application, joy, happiness, and one-pointedness. When all those 5 accompany a consciousness, that is called the first jhana consciousness. And then the second jhana consciousness. It is accompanied by sustained application, joy, happiness, and one-pointedness. In the second jhana consciousness, initial application is not there anymore because initial application is pretty gross for second jhana consciousness. It only has 4. And the third jhana only has 3. Joy, happiness, and one-pointedness. Initial application and sustained application are eliminated. Only 3. So it is quite subtle, a lot finer. And the 4th jhana consciousness. In the 4th, only the happiness and one-pointedness remains. Only 2. It is very refined. Happiness and one-pointedness. And then the fifth jhana, the highest jhana, contains only equanimity and one-pointedness. Happiness is being replaced by equanimity, neutral feeling, equanimous to all situation. So those are the 5 jhanas. I believe one of the yogi asked, what is the 5th jhana? In one of the class. So the 5th jhana is a jhana which is accompanied by equanimity and one-pointedness. So those are the 5 kinds of jhana. So let's see these jhana factor one at a time. More in a brief statement, of course. The initial application, in Pali it's called vitaka, is directing or applying the mind towards the object. Objects, there's an object that you choose, and you have to keep sending the mind, directing the mind, applying the mind onto that object. That action is called vitaka, initial application, because you have to keep on doing again and again and again. You're applying again and again and again. So there's a lot of effort and energy. Because of that vitaka, initial application, is the opposing factor to sloth and torpor, one of the hindrances. Sloth and torpor, sluggishness, laziness, sleepiness. When you're sluggish and lazy and sleepy, what happened? You are in a moha state, deluded, eluded, unsure state. So this vitaka initial application opposes, in general, moha, specifically sloth and torpor. That is initial application, vitaka. The next one is the sustained application. In Pali it is called visara. Sustained application keeps or stick the mind with the object from the beginning to the end. An object arises. So arising is the beginning. Carry on, middle, and disappear. And from the beginning to the end of that object, the mind keeps with the object, sticks with the object. And that is visara, sustained application. And this factor, visara, opposes doubt, vicikiccha. Because vicikiccha is you are not sure of things, you are uncertain about things. But if one stays with the object from the beginning to the end, if it is rubbing the object, it's with the object, you know about the object. As you know about the object, you have no doubt about the object. That doubt is vicikiccha. That sustained application, sticking with the object, is the opposing force to clear doubt. Vichara. And the third jhana factor called piti. P-I-T-I, piti. It is translated as joy, pleasurable interest. This piti or joy is a mental formation, cetasika, mental formation, sankhara, a mental factor, cetasika. It is a pleasurable interest for an object. If you have an interest with keen interest, delightful interest in an object, then you are having a piti. See, interest, that's a key thing. There are 5 kinds of pitis, from the gross one to the most subtle and refined one. And this piti is the opposing factor for vyabhada. Vyabhada means dosa, aversion. When you have a piti, dosa is not there. And the 4th jhana factor is happiness. In Pali is sukha. Sometimes they translate it as bliss. Bliss or happiness, sukha. This happiness is a pleasant feeling. Okay, pleasant feeling. Domanassa. Okay, mental, pleasant feeling. Domanassa. Or you can even call it, it's a spiritual pleasure. You pursue spirituality and then you feel great, happy, blissful. So you can call it a spiritual pleasure. And it is born out of detachment to the 5 sense pleasure. Detachment to the 6 sense pleasure. When you are detached to the sense pleasure, which is pleasure you get out of seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, and thinking. If you are detached to those things, that bliss or happiness, sukha or somanassa arises. Happiness closely follow the joy. Okay? There's joy and then happiness follow. But one can experience happiness with or without joy. There could be joy and happiness. It could be simply be happiness without joy. Because happiness is a feeling, vedana, and joy is a mental factor or mental state, cetasika. 2 different categories. So just to explain it with an example will be, let's say a person in a desert alone, hot and thirsty. And when that person see an oasis at a distance, when you see an oasis at a distance, the joy comes up. Just the expectation of what one can receive at the oasis, just that expectation produces joy, a mental factor. It's not a feeling. And happiness, the feeling, is the experience of enjoying the water on arrival at the oasis. It is the actual experience that you are feeling when you are drinking water in an oasis. That is happiness, sukha. The other one is expectation of a desirable object, piti, or joy, pleasurable interest. And this happiness opposes restlessness and remorse, kokcha, dukkha, nivarana, which is a category of dosa. So each mental factor is opposing to one of the hindrances. That's what's happening. And the last one, one-pointedness, ekaggata. One-pointedness, ekaggata. One-pointedness on an object is a mental factor, cetasika. It is also known as samadhi. Samadhi and ekaggata are one and the same, one-pointedness. It has cohesive power, and its function is to consolidate all the associated mental factors with it. The samadhi consolidated all the other mental factors that are with it, so that they become more powerful and work more efficiently and effectively. And this mental factor, one-pointedness, opposed to sense desire, kama, chanda, nivarana. Sense desire is a lobha, greed. So when you have one-pointedness, there is no lobha, there is no kama, chanda. That is the fifth jhana factor. So it's a brief explanation of 5 jhana factors, how they are, what they do, and what kind of hindrances they are opposed to or eliminate. So that's about jhana, and it is essential to know the difference between jhana factors and jhana consciousness. Some people use it like as if they are one and the same, but they are not, they are different. So may all of you be able to attain samatha jhana if you are practicing samatha meditation, or vipassana jhana if you are practicing vipassana, and eliminate all the 5 hindrances as soon as possible. Sadhu, sadhu, sadhu. Thank you very much.